movie is set in 1951 Manchester, England, where the headquarters of the Secret Intelligence Service, or MI6, intercepts a message informing them that a mathematician named Alan Turing has been robbed at his residence. Reacting to this news, two detectives are sent to Alan's place to investigate the burglary. However, Alan assures them that everything is fine, which arouses suspicion in Detective Knock's mind that he may be hiding something. The story then cuts to a flashback in September 1939 in London, when Germany declares war against Britain. This declaration leads to the evacuation of 800,000 children from their homes. Amidst this, the young Alan arrives at what appears to be Bletchley Radio Manufacturing, but is actually MI6 headquarters. There, he meets with Commander Denniston from the Royal Navy, who recognizes Alan's brilliance due to his early publication of scientific papers at the age of 23. The commander inquires about his interest in working for the government, to which Alan responds that he's not interested. Additionally, he admits that he doesn't speak German and that he wants to join just because he loves solving mathematical puzzles. This creates a huge turnoff for the commander, since knowledge of the German language is a crucial requirement for the job, given the need to decode German communications. Hence, Denniston believes that Alan is not qualified and asks him to leave. However, Alan, being an exceptional mathematician, reveals his perspective on German codes, viewing them as puzzles. Denniston then calls his secretary to escort him out, but just then, Alan mentions Enigma, revealing that he knows about the top secret program he's being considered for. It is then revealed that Enigma is a highly advanced encryption device used by the Germans for their critical communications. If the Allies can decipher its code, it would bring an end to the war. Denniston believes that Enigma is unbreakable, but Alan requests to let him give it a try before reaching a definitive conclusion. Following this, Denniston introduces Alan to the team of 5 other cryptography experts: Hugh Alexander, John Cairncross, Peter Hilton, Keith Furman, and Charles Richards. Together, they're assigned the crucial task of decrypting Enigma. The team has a genuine Enigma machine, which they managed to smuggle out of Berlin. However, they are unaware of the specific settings required to decode the intercepted messages. It turns out that the Germans change these settings every midnight, and the codebreakers have only 18 hours a day to crack the code, starting from 6 a.m. when the first message is intercepted. Otherwise, they must begin anew. Hugh, the chess champion, calculates that there are a staggering 159 million possible combinations every day. As Alan begins his work, he realizes that no matter how much they try, they can't complete checking millions of settings in 18 hours if they go manually. As a result, he contemplates creating a machine that can swiftly decode Enigma on a daily basis and starts designing blueprints for the same. Meanwhile, in the present, Detective Knock discovers that Alan's records are classified, which raises suspicions about why a math professor would possess classified documents. In an attempt to uncover the truth, Knock fabricates a document using a typewriter, allowing him to access Alan's service records. To his astonishment, the files turn out to be empty. Knock reports this peculiar finding to the superintendent, suspecting that Alan may be a Soviet spy. Returning to 1939, Alan complains to Denniston about Hugh, the leader of their team. He says that the guy is denying him the necessary funding to build his machine. In response, the commander instructs Alan to follow his leader's directives. Confident, Alan proposes the idea of dismissing the entire team and allocating the funds towards his machine instead. He argues that he requires £100,000 for this purpose and emphasizes that only a machine can effectively combat another machine. When his request gets denied, Alan sends a letter to Denniston's commanding officer, Winston Churchill, via MI6 Chief Stewart. To everyone's surprise, Winston appoints Alan as the new leader and gives him the necessary funds. After this, Alan fires Keith and Charles, criticizing their linguistic skills and code-breaking abilities. Just imagine getting your cumbers batched like that by Benny. Now, facing a shortage of staff, Alan decides to recruit talented people for the vacant positions. For this, he publishes a challenging crossword puzzle in the newspapers, telling interested candidates to submit their solutions by mail. Through this process, he gathers several promising candidates and conducts a second test among them. Alan then provides 6 minutes time for the candidates to solve another difficult puzzle, which took 8 minutes for Alan himself. To his astonishment, a woman named Joan completes it in just 5 minutes and 34 seconds. Impressed by her abilities, Alan hires Joan and another guy for the positions. Several months later, Alan eagerly awaits the arrival of his machine parts in a secret hut, but he grows concerned when Joan doesn't show up. As a result, he visits her place and tries to convince her parents that she's very necessary at the radio factory, which is an official cover for their true purpose. However, her parents hold reservations, considering it improper for her to work and reside among men. In order to convince them, Alan pretends that Joan will be working in the clerical department alongside other women. This finally convinces Joan's parents, who ultimately allow her to join the workforce. Amidst these events, the British civilians are facing severe hunger and deprivation due to the ongoing war. Every week, the Germans relentlessly attack big cities as the British struggle to forecast their moves. Alan and his team are also experiencing repeated failures, requiring them to restart the code cracking process from scratch each day. Frustrated by the continuous setbacks, Hugh reaches a breaking point and vents his anger towards Alan, contemplating the destruction of his machine. Thankfully, the other team members intervene and prevent any harm. One morning, Alan arrives at his workplace only to find some military officers searching his desk. When asked, Deniston explains that there's a suspected spy within Bletchley Park. He shows Alan an intercepted telegram destined for Moscow, encrypted with a key phrase. The commander has his doubts on Alan and warns him that he will face treason charges if any incriminating evidence is found. This saddens Alan, as he knows that his team members, as well as the commander, don't like him for his cold and off attitude. What if they Benny my batch, thinks Cumber Boy. Later, Joan becomes aware of the incident and takes Alan to a nearby restaurant to lift up his mood. Shortly after, Hugh, John, and Peter enter the same restaurant, and Joan greets them warmly. She later conveys to Alan that his intelligence alone is not sufficient, as Enigma is very smart. She emphasizes that he needs the support of his team, but they won't assist him if they don't like him. Taking this advice to heart, Alan brings some apples for his team members the next day and attempts to establish a more friendly relationship with them. He even tries to inject humor by cracking a joke.
Listen, I may have been a dick, but you're all a part of my batch.
As time passes, Alan's team members begin to change their perception of him and gradually start to support him. Finally, after much effort, Alan successfully completes his machine, which he names Christopher. However, when he activates it, they discover that it's not quick enough to determine Enigma's encryption settings. News of this failure quickly reaches Deniston, who then pays a visit to Alan's hut. Deniston informs Alan that his associate from the Home Office is displeased with the expenditure of £100,000 on what they perceive to be a useless machine. Growing impatient, Deniston then announces his decision to terminate Alan's job. However, the other team members step in and threaten to leave if their leader is dismissed. They express their faith in Alan's machine and request for more time. As a result, Deniston reluctantly grants them 1 month to produce results, warning that failure will lead to their collective dismissal. Later that day, as the group is chilling in a bar, Alan tells Hugh that he is not a spy. In response, he reveals that he already knew Alan wasn't a spy because he recognized a simple Bible quote used in an encrypted message, a code that Alan would never employ. At present, his sergeant informs Detective Knock that he has uncovered information about Alan being homosexual and his involvement with a male hustler who later robbed Alan's house. The sergeant suggests that this is the secret Alan was hiding from the police, also implying that he is not a spy. Despite this revelation, the detective remains suspicious and asks for Alan's arrest for a private interrogation. Back in 1941, Joan comes to Alan and shares her sudden decision to return home. Shocked, Alan asks for the reason, to which she explains that her parents want her to get married. Alan doesn't want her to leave because he likes her company, so he devises a solution to her problem. He rolls an electrical wire into a makeshift ring and proposes to her for marriage.
Please, make me the happiest dick cumber on the market.
The scene then shifts to the engagement party. While everyone is enjoying themselves, Alan confides in John, admitting his homosexuality. Here, it is revealed that being homosexual is illegal at that time. John advises Alan to keep the secret hidden, even from his fiancée. He emphasizes that they can't take any risks, and on top of that, Deniston is looking for any excuse to put Alan away. From the very next day, the team gets back to their work, but the machine, Christopher's pace, is still slow to crack the immense number of possibilities. After yet another unsuccessful attempt, the cryptographers gather at a pub, where Joan's friend is also present. The latter casually mentions that while working, she heard a German coder talking about his girlfriend. Hearing this, Alan has a sudden realization. He understands that he can program Christopher to decode words he already knows to exist in specific messages. Alan then rushes back to the workplace, followed by his teammates. He reveals that the German encoders always begin their first message with a standard unidentifiable German script. By decoding these initial messages, they can quickly decipher all the messages encrypted with that day's Enigma code. Motivated by this breakthrough, Alan alters his machine accordingly and tests it with a 6 a.m. message. To their surprise, Christopher halts within a matter of seconds. They hastily jot down the letters produced and rush to the Enigma machine, inputting the same letters. Finally, they successfully decode the message, bringing immense joy to the team. Throughout the night, they diligently decode a multitude of German messages. Upon compiling all of the decrypted information, Joan manages to crack that a British convoy is about to be attacked within the next half hour. Reacting swiftly, Hugh attempts to contact the commander, but Alan prevents him from doing so. He even breaks the telephone to stop the information from leaking out. Expectedly, this enrages Hugh, and he punches Alan hard in the face, causing him to bleed.
Oh, you Benny-batched my combo deck.
Despite this, Alan explains his actions, pointing out that if they suddenly relay the information to their seniors and counterattack the enemies, the Germans will learn that Enigma has been compromised. This knowledge would prompt the Germans to change their encryption machinery, nullifying 2 years' worth of efforts. Therefore, they cannot act on every decoded message, so they choose not to rescue the convoy. Sadly, Peter's elder brother serves on one of the ships in the convoy, and he pleads with the team to redirect at least one ship, but Alan apologizes that he cannot do so. The following day, Alan and Joan board a train to London to meet the MI6 chief, Stuart. Meeting him in a coffee shop, they disclose their successful cracking of Enigma. However, they request Stuart to keep it confidential, and instead decide to act on only the bigger attacks to save more people. Alan asks Stuart to find other sources to relay the information to the Germans, so that the enemies don't get suspicious that the Enigma has been cracked. He suggests they spread rumors that a British spy is among the Nazis, and that he's the one disclosing all the valuable information. Days pass, and the team of cryptographers persist in their efforts to decode intercepted messages. One day, Alan notices John's Bible and recalls Hugh's mention of a Soviet spy using a Bible quote. This leads him to realize that John is the spy. But before Alan can report this to Denniston, John stops and blackmails him, saying that he will expose his homosexuality to the public.
I may be a traitor to the whole country, but you're super gay, bud.
Later, Alan decides to contact Stuart, but soon realizes that his calls may be intercepted. Stressed, he heads to Joan's apartment, only to find Stuart there. Alan inquires about Joan's whereabouts, to which Stuart informs him that she's detained in a military prison under suspicion of being a Soviet spy. Alan contradicts this by revealing that it's John who is the true spy, not Joan. Stuart confesses that he was aware of John's true identity, even before his arrival at Bletchley Park, and that he purposely placed him there to leak information. Before departing, he also reveals that he lied about Joan's imprisonment, and that she has actually gone to the market. Benny just got dick-batched. Later that day, Alan meets Joan and admits that he's homosexual, hoping it'll be enough to persuade her to leave Bletchley Park for good. But unexpectedly, she remains unfazed by this revelation and insists that they can still lead a happy life together. Fearing for Joan's safety, Alan fabricates a lie, claiming that he never truly cared for her and had merely exploited her for her cryptography skills. This devastates her, but she still decides to stay. Then we see more footage from World War II. While in a voiceover, Alan reflects on the daily decoding of messages. He suggests that the outcome of the war wasn't determined by bombings and battles, but by a team of 6 crossword enthusiasts in a small English village. Move over, band of brothers.
Here comes the combo batch.
After 2 more years, the war finally ends, and Stuart instructs the cryptographers to destroy all evidence related to their successful cracking of Enigma. He also says that they should never reunite or disclose their achievements in the future. In 1951, Alan, who was in an interrogation room with Nock, seems to have shared his entire past stories with the detective. Following this, Alan asks Nock to play the imitation game and answer whether he is a machine or a human. However, Nock is unable to provide an answer. 6 months later, Alan is convicted of gross indecency, and instead of serving a prison sentence, he undergoes 2 years of weekly hormonal therapy aimed at suppressing his homosexual tendencies. In 1953, Joan visits Alan at his residence. It turns out that she is now married and living a normal life. Witnessing Alan's physical and mental deterioration, she tries to console him by acknowledging that his work saved countless lives. After her departure, Alan gazes longingly at Christopher, his beloved machine, before turning out the lights. The epilogue reveals that a year after the mandated hormonal therapy, Alan tragically committed the unthinkable in 1954. 59 years later, in 2013, Queen Elizabeth II finally granted Alan Turing a posthumous royal pardon, recognizing and honoring his contributions that ultimately paved the way for the development of modern computers.